Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Today is May the 4th, 2018. May the 4th be with you. Strong hand, long-term thinking. All right, guys, we have a very special This Week in Bitcoin because it's been a very special week in Bitcoin. We got Zach, we've got Maximo, we've got Giuseppe, and we're going to talk about all sorts of fun subjects. Everything is linked to below. You can find out who these guys are. They've all been on this show before. You know them already, but their links are below. Check out the link section below. Get a Trezor, Ledger Nano, T-shirts, all that good stuff. We're going to start off with Maximo, though, because he's coming from far away in Venezuela. And people have been asking, like, what's up with Maximo? I want him back on the show to tell us what's going on in Venezuela. And then coincidentally today, CoinDesk comes out with some article about what is this? Venezuelan president launches cryptocurrency funded youth bank. All right, Maximo. And also there's been, anyway, what's going on in Venezuela, Maximo?
Well, thank you, Adam, for inviting me to the show. You know I love to be here. Well, starting with that news, I'm going to tell you something. All the articles that goes out in the CoinDesk and the Cointelegraph about Venezuela, most of them are not true. Okay, they just quote what the president says, and they assume that is true. And most of the case it isn't. Yeah, the Venezuelan president Maduro did a press conference last week, a couple of days ago, I think, and he said that he was going to give like $1.2 billion to start a new bank for the young people. That's just words, okay? It's, well, we will see in the future if it's true or if it's not true, but be careful with the articles that you read on those websites, because most of them, when they are talking to Venezuela, they are just quoting what the people from the government said. Some news. Well, actually, the last week, a government organization, a government entity that is called CENIAT, which is like the IRS in the US, the organization that handle the taxes. Actually, now that they are not letting Bitcoin miners or GPUs or CPUs or power supplies, anything that you can use to mine cryptocurrencies, to enter into the country, because they want to put some kind of taxation over that stuff. Well, what I think is that actually the government do not want people to mine cryptocurrency. They just all the things that you hear about Venezuela becoming the crypto nation. Well, guys, we live in a country with capital and exchange control, so it doesn't make sense that those guys who are restricting us from having a free market are the ones who are going to endorse cryptocurrencies. So that's the big news for the last week, is that you cannot bring into the country any Bitcoin miners or any GPUs or something that you want to use to mine cryptocurrency anymore, unless you are from the government and you're working with them.
Wow. Well, I've got a question here. The Petro, does it really exist?
Well, yes. They launched the Petro on the NEM blockchain, not in the Ethereum blockchain like it says in the white paper. But there is not proof that they are currently selling any Petros or that they have sold any Petros. It's like a black hole. Nobody knows really.
So you do not know a person who actually owns a Petro now?
No, even like do you remember the last time I was in the show? I was telling you about all this thing about the Petro, and that the website has a JavaScript issue that it won't allow you to finish the registration process. Well, that issue still exists. So you cannot register actually in the web page. So I don't know how you can buy it. I don't know, really.
I mean, they're still writing articles about it in America, and it doesn't even exist. I mean, this is just the disconnect between reality and what's going on. Well,
yeah.
So it's still talk. It's a bunch of, so this children's bank is talk. It's all talk. It's all nonsense. I mean, it's nonsense right now until we see anything. This is unbelievable. Okay, but enough of me. Do you guys have any questions for Maximo by any chance?
Well, I chatted with Alejandro Machado, and I are decently good friends, and he wrote, I guess, I'm bad with dates, maybe a couple months ago. Anyway, he was analyzing the addresses on the Petro and showed that none of them have even moved since the token was launched. Is that still the case? Like, have they exchanged hands from anyone, whether government officials or private citizens or foreign investors or anything? Have Petros actually changed hands from one party to another for like the sale of goods or something in any way been used as a medium of exchange?
No. Actually, I the last time I was here, I sent a couple of articles to Adam from that Alejandro wrote, but they made some transactions, but like 2 or 3 transactions, and the president of my country said that they sold like $700 million of petros to 700 million guys, and there are no transactions backing that information. They move it, maybe they move it around like 2 or 3 transactions, maybe to see if the token was working properly, but there is no current information that can prove that the government has sold or maybe have received any money, or that someone besides the government is holding any amount of petros.
Maduro just like hiked the minimum wage too to like 1 million bolivars per hour or something, or per day or something like that. Why? I mean,
no, per month.
Oh, per month. Why is he not? I mean, maybe because his website is a basic JavaScript issue, like you said. I don't know, but why is he not involving the Petro in this? Like, why is he still using bolivars? Isn't that supposed to be replaced or something? Or why is he? And he like introduced the super bolivar or something a couple months ago. Like, what is he doing?
Yeah, in 2 weeks they are going to take off 3 zeros of our currency. They did this like 7 years ago. That's because of hyperinflation. That 1 million bolivar, that is the monthly wage, the monthly minimum legal salary of a person here in Venezuela, is equal to $1. $1, okay? So a guy who owns that, who makes that, monthly, they are making $1 per month. Why aren't they using the petro? I think if the governments allow the people to buy petrol with bolivars, and then in some way we can exchange those petrols to Bitcoin and then to another currency, then it's a way that Venezuelan people can start experiencing a free economy, and the government do not want that. That's so hilarious, because you are creating a cryptocurrency based on Venezuela and backed by Venezuela, supposedly backed by Venezuelan oil, but you are not allowed to buy those tokens with bolivars. You can buy it with Bitcoins or with dollars. So it makes no sense.
No. And actually, I have a question. So I hear that there's like 15 or 18 exchanges now with papers. None of them went live though, or what's the deal with them?
No. People here use local Bitcoins. That's it. All other exchanges have really small volumes. Their platforms are crap. And
are they centralized? Or do you think they're government backed and regulated?
Yeah.
Oh, we're getting to a little bit.
The government is the one that give those people the license to open an exchange. So people here use local Bitcoins. That's it, man. That we don't have another exchange.
Wow, everyone, we're getting real insight. So pound that like button, check out the link section below, subscribe to the channel. Remember to do that. That was very interesting what you just said about local Bitcoins versus the exchanges, because, you know, as you know, Maximo, I've heard that there was a big exchange down there. There's someone we know who deals with one of those exchanges, but you're just saying it's dominated by local Bitcoins now.
Yeah, well, those exchanges exist, but most of the people, I can say 95% of the people who owns Bitcoin and want to exchange it for bolivars use local Bitcoins.
So they arrange a setup and bring a wheelbarrow worth of bolivars with them, or
no wire transfers. We don't use cash here, really.
Okay.
Cash is useless in here.
Okay. All right. This is there anything else before we move? We're talking. So, I mean, they've tried to create a centralized cryptocurrency, and they can't even do that. It appears, basically, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, right now it appears to be a gimmick. As you said, it would be great if you could use your bolivars to get petros, and then get petros to get Bitcoin. But it seems like we're many steps behind that right now.
Yeah, I think that the reason why the petro is not working right now is because the government wants to create a cryptocurrency so they can avoid the sanctions that the US put on them 3 months ago or something like that. But they want to do that without allowing the people to freely transact with each other and other economies. So they have that problem, that they don't want to free the economy, but they want to have an instrument that they can use so they can sell oil, or they can issue some new debt without caring about what the US government says. But I don't know, man. Really,
if it doesn't exist, they're not avoiding any sanctions.
Yeah,
they got to get it flowing a little bit. All right, one last question. This is more of a. There was a woman named Abby Martin who was on the Joe Rogan show. I don't know if you heard about that.
No.
Okay, she said it's not. She's a very socialist, liberal type of American person, and she says it's not that bad in Venezuela now. What's the story in Venezuela? I mean, just day-to-day life in Venezuela.
Well, you send me the Twitter the Twitter name of that girl, and I can invite her to my country and show her how good it is to live in here. Of course, it's bad, man. It's hyperinflation. People are starving. You see every day people eating from the trash because they have no money. That's it. Fortunately, I get into Bitcoin a long time ago, and I'm doing well for myself. But most of the people in Venezuela are not in the same situations as I am. Most of the people in Venezuela, they make like 4 to 5 million bolivars, which is $5. How could you survive earning $5 per month? It's impossible.
So you actually see people starving. I mean,
yeah,
bad stuff. Because this woman tried to paint a prettier picture of this.
It's not just the food, man. It's the medicines. You cannot, for example, I have allergies, and I cannot find the medicine, the correct medicine here in my country. I have to buy it outside and then ship it to my country so I can treat myself. And that's patients with cancer, with DHI, all kinds of stuff. And people is dying because they cannot buy the medicine because it's too expensive, or maybe they have the money but it's not in here in the country, so they have to buy it outside. There is medicine that you cannot buy outside if you are not in the pharmacy with the proof that you need that, and all kinds of stuff, man. Really, the situation here is really bad. And seriously, I get really angry when I hear people telling that it's otherwise, that the life here in Venezuela is great. If you base your argument on the news that you read in the papers, obviously you are not going to see what's happening in here, because the government don't want you to know the truth.
Wow.
No social government wants you to know the truth.
No, and this is why we got you. This is I'm so happy to have you on this show. And on the ground, real experience of what is going on there. And hopefully more people can get their hands on Bitcoin there. I think it will help. It's helped you.
No, it's helping. It's helping a lot of people, man. Really,
Yeah.
Bitcoin is. I know a lot of people that can make a living in here just because they bought a miner, and they can afford making a living in here because they have a Bitcoin miner or a GPU ASIC or something.
Now, you said at the beginning of the show that the government is cracking down. I mean, do you think they can actually crack down on this stuff, on the mining?
Well, for big operations, yes, they can, because you just track the electric consumption and that's it. But you cannot stop the people for running 2 to 3 miners in their home. They cannot do that. That's why they are not allowing new equipment to enter into the country, because they want to stop that.
Wow. Well, something's got to give eventually. Yes, someone's going to say something. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask a quick question about buying Bitcoin in Venezuela. You said local Bitcoins is pretty much what everyone uses, pretty established. Is there any growth in the use of other means of buying Bitcoin like BISC or HODL or any of those like decentralized exchanges?
No, not really. Actually, another news. There is a bank that most of the people use to buy Bitcoin through local Bitcoin, which is called Banesco. It's a bank here in Venezuela. And yesterday, the government took that bank, and I think it's not a coincidence. They're trying to stop this, and they're trying to make it look outside like they are endorsing cryptocurrency, but it's not true. No, actually, the only way to buy Bitcoins securely and if you want to buy a big amount of Bitcoins in here is with local Bitcoins. That's a platform that everyone uses, and that's a platform that you can find the volume that will allow you to transact.
All right. Any other questions for Maximo before we move on?
I have one more, actually. I'm just more curious. So it sounds like you're telling the truth, which is great. And I'm just curious as to the government in Venezuela. How do they take to, honest critics, people that, kind of give their opinion? You clearly don't care, it seems, but.
Yeah. Well, maybe if this show was, I told you guys all of this because, well, by now, I haven't been approached by the authorities yet, maybe. But yeah, I know some people that they were journalists and they were telling the exact same thing that I'm telling you guys, and well, the government, the authorities came to their home, and well, you know what happened next.
Sure.
But that's why I'm trying to be anonymous in social network and all those kind of stuff. Actually, I'm not too active on Twitter, maybe because of that. But yeah, I think that someone needs to tell the truth. And well, maybe I think it's worth it if something happens. People need to know what's happening here.
Everyone, pound that like button for Maximo right now. Seriously, he's doing a great service to this world. Yeah, man.
Thank
you. Dude, thank you for all the insight that you give us. And we're hoping things get better down there and more people get their hands on Bitcoin, and who knows where it'll start. Maybe they'll come to their senses, because it seems like the government is at best very confused on how to deal with cryptocurrency, be it
that's also true. I know a lot of people who are trying to work with the government and make that stuff work, but they are not listening to them. And actually, in the government, they don't know how cryptocurrencies works. So that's why they take this approach of stopping miners entering into the country and not allowing normal people to open an exchange or pursuing people who owns a big mining facility. So that sort of stuff, because they don't know how this technology works, and maybe they are scared because it's new.
Yeah. Wow. This is well, we'll get you back on here soon enough again. I see why everybody wants you to come back on, because you're giving us news that nobody else is talking. This is no CoinDesk article. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that. This is no CoinDesk article. Well, speaking of CoinDesk type articles, I guess, and they like to write about these centralized coins. And well, speaking about centralization, Venezuela tried to do their own centralized coin, obviously, but it didn't work out. But this week we've encountered a lot of centralized type of news. Reasons why, if you've got a cryptocurrency, you should try to not make it so centralized. Ripple is getting sued because Ripple is a corporation. There was a guy that's doing a fork of this Banonymous thing. He goes on a Reddit and makes a fool out of himself. And it's a centralized weakness type of thing. So we still, after all this time, we still have individuals and groups that are still centralized. And I'm surprised. Giuseppe, do you have any thoughts on the continued centralization that, how these entities can be lawsuited and people are threatening lawsuits, and how this isn't, I didn't expect this from cryptocurrency.
Yeah. I mean, we live in a world where you can sue anyone for anything, whether you see that as being fortunate or unfortunate. It's a reality. With regard to cryptocurrency, yeah, it's incredibly unfortunate that it depends on the actions, right? There's a lot of bad actors in every industry, not just crypto, where they deceive people and they and they end up harming people. And of course, those people should be held accountable. And I think that has nothing to do with cryptocurrency. It just has to do with pure fraud, right? But then there's also gray areas where it's not clear cut, and many could argue that it's really not that solid of a basis. And people, for whatever self-serving purposes, want to try and push their narrative via the filter of, lawsuit this, lawsuit that. And it's a losing battle for all parties involved. Right? I mean, there's a reason why I don't know the statistic, but the far majority of lawsuits, they get settled before they even hit a courtroom. And the reason why is because it's just not worth it at the end of the day. But I think it's unfortunate. It's definitely where there's no fraud involved, it's definitely an indicator of centralization for sure. Yeah. Right? And yeah.
And so you're familiar also, obviously, with some of these altcoins, they have these guru type of leaders, or there's just too much, I don't know, people focus way too much on certain people. So you also had to deal, you're involved with the Bprivate project and the Rhett Creighton situation. Do you have any, and then, I mean, that's a case of centralization where everyone thought that, well, this guy is the man, this guy is the Bprivate man. And so, and the same thing was thought of with Charlie Lee and Litecoin, So it's good when these coins can say, you know what, these guys aren't we don't have a king. And do you have any comments on what happened with Rhett? Any insight?
Sure. Yeah. I have strong opinions on the decentralization factor, which really doesn't have to do with Rhett. I mean, with regard to Rhett,
it does, because everyone thought, painted it as a centralized coin because of Rhett.
Sure. I think for the people that looked at it that way, yeah, sure. With regard to the Rhett scenario, he came up with a pretty powerful concept in Bitcoin Private. He got a pretty good community together of people like myself. In terms of his forward-looking involvement, it's not there, obviously, given the recent events. No hard feelings on a personal level. And then I think, though, it's a great opportunity, regardless of whether it was Rhett or not, for us to reiterate that, at least in Bitcoin Private, and it should be for really any cryptocurrency if you stand for decentralization, there should be no lead developer. Okay, there should be no lead this, no lead that. We actually took down all those titles from the website. There's no leads, there's no heads anymore. And in the community update, most recent community update, we laid out a few frameworks that are going to lay the groundwork for long-term decentralization and decentralized sustainability, where we will prevent anything like that happening again, where some people, you had a good point. Yeah, they saw Rhett as having a huge role in the project currently and most recently, and that it was, all him. But, as with any decentralized project, it's just that can't be the case. It's never the case. And I think in order to protect a currency's or a cryptocurrency project's integrity in that case, it's very important to take the courses of action that we've been taking, where we're reiterating our commitment to decentralization, etc. So
okay. You're very good. Now, Zach, any decentralization comments? Any comments on what he just said?
Yeah, I'm curious. So I'm sort of I think forking Bitcoin is one of the best ways to create an altcoin, besides maybe side chains is moderately better. And Giacomo Zucco was talking in his like epic tweet storm the other day that was going around Twitter. Was he used the phrase immaculate conception, like that religious idea, as one of the key catalysts that Bitcoin has to beat everything else. And I'm just curious if you see Bitcoin private as a complement to Bitcoin moving forward, realizing that Bitcoin, Giacomo, I was chatting with him after that on a call I recorded, and he said, yeah, right now Bitcoin's privacy sucks. And obviously Bitcoin private is trying to take a step forward to fix that. Do you see them as complements to each other, or how do you see, and I guess also I'm curious to know if you can sort of break down briefly the steps towards Bitcoin private reaching that breaking apart of the centralized team and achieving that decentralization that everybody realizes is so key, if all that makes sense.
Yes. So 100% a compliment to Bitcoin. Bitcoin has it does have the best developers in cryptocurrency today. They continue to blaze the trail. And I don't think anyone can argue that. And I think that, people point to their scaling issues, but those are short-term problems that any technology has, right? It doesn't have to be with specific regard to scaling, but any popular growing piece of technology has its issues. And one short-term issue is that of scaling. But I think that, for Bitcoin, privacy is not the number one core competency, right? And I think that's where the ecosystem, the greater cryptocurrency ecosystem, can benefit from a privacy solution, from an open source development team whose number one focus / core competency is privacy. And you can see in the actions that we've taken in the past and that we plan to take in the future as an open source development team, everything's focused around privacy, and also not just at the protocol level, but what we like to believe just as important at the consumer facing level, right? Because you can have a great piece of technology. However, if it does not appropriately interface with the everyday human being, how is it going to integrate into the daily lives of individuals? And I think I think everyone who's working on the project on an open source level thinks that is a key factor in that mission. As for the second question, what are some of the actions that we're taking and how we plan on becoming more and more decentralized, or committing to remaining decentralized, because we are decentralized. There are no leads. We're trying to, moving forward, limit all the different titles, right? Everyone has their place on the project. Everyone contributes. And obviously there's some people who've been contributing longer than others. That's fine. That's natural. And then also too, the way that we're laying the groundwork for, there's going to be the foundation that powers the protocol related development. Then there's going to be Bitcoin Private Nexus, which powers more commercial utilities. So the analogy that we like to use sometimes is what Ethereum has with Consensus, for example. It works quite well. It's a pretty cool model. And it's important to have, what we're calling Bitcoin Private Nexus, which isn't in place today from an organizational standpoint, but we're going to be moving more and more towards that in terms of organizing functions of a team, is because you want to be able to encourage developers out there to harness the power of the Bitcoin private protocol. and whose number one focus may be, I'm going to build out the best possible merchant platform, for example. That is my number one focus. That is my number one core competency. And it's going to take focus like that in order to bring the best out of the protocol and the developments that come on the protocol. So, but in doing all that, you're building a decentralized ecosystem, right? Where you have developers who are 100% focused on the protocol level development. Then you have developers who are focused on all sorts of different parts of the spectrum on the application layer, and kind of continuing to move towards that is what we believe will achieve optimal decentralization. There's always going to be room for improvement, but we think that we're making pretty good strides as an open source team.
That makes sense.
Very good update here. I'd like to see. Maximo, any thoughts, any decentralized comments you want to make? Anything you want to add?
Well, we have been discussing this in your show before. The ICO madness and all that stuff was crazy. We knew that regulators were coming, and that's what happened. That is what is happening. We will see. Like I said, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if Ripple qualifies as a security. I don't know if Ethereum qualifies as a security. Well, the lawyers will handle that, and the government will handle that. But that's not like they say. I think it's not cryptocurrencies. Actually, fraud. And if you commit fraud in any space of any life or any economic something, you will face your consequences. And that's what is happening. It's happening with Bitcoin. It's now the lawsuit against Ripple. The SEC is analyzing if Ethereum qualifies as a security. So we will see. And yeah, that's a perfect example of centralization. When you face those problems, means that your project is completely centralized. And for example, Ripple, man, that's a completely centralized coin. You cannot deny that, man. It's the people who argue with you.
You cannot deny that.
Yeah, you cannot deny that. How can you deny that Ripple is not a centralized project? Come on. Yeah. I have some questions about Bitcoin Private. Actually, we were talking the show we did, Adam, with Simon and the Vortex. We said that the next big Bitcoin debate was going to be about Bitcoin privacy, because Bitcoin privacy is terrible. It's terrible, and we need to fix that. And I think Bitcoin privacy is a really good approach of solving that problem. What is the stand of the Bitcoin private community about the new ASIC that just came out from Bitmain that is from Equihash coins? So because I think that maybe it's an opportunity to, I don't know, attract some GPU miners and increase your hash rate.
Sure. So that's a very hot debate. We actually just launched a couple of discussion channels in our public Discord for all of you who are passionate about this topic. There's a lot of good conversation going on there. I can't even keep up with it. It is interesting, right? I think no one can argue whether it's Bitmain or whatever entity XYZ, it's a scary prospect, I think, for anything, not just Equihash, but just in general, for this ASIC to potentially come in and own that, right? And that, I think many have good arguments for why that would be a very good example of centralization. So, we are, as I was saying, we decentralize, we're consensus driven. So we are not, no one of us can jump out with our own opinion. I have my personal opinion. Many people do. However, though, the reality is this just came up yesterday, right? I mean, about what, 30 hours ago. So, I think that the process of consensus needs to take place. It is taking place. And I think a lot of people seem to have really good arguments for why it's scary. It's a very scary prospect. To your point, if the community decides, we're going to stay way far away from that, you're probably right. It is a very good opportunity to attract GPU miners, etc. But I think pretty crazy. It's a crazy topic, that's for sure.
Yeah. No, and it's different from the Ed hash ASIC that Bismay just released, because these, I don't know, C9, I don't remember the name. It mines 10K solutions, and I'm a miner. I sell mining equipment in here, and the best card to mine the Equihash algorithm is probably the 180 Ti. And with a rig with 6 of those cards, you can make hardly 4K, 4.5K solutions per second. So that and with a really high electricity consumption.
Right.
So that ASIC is going to take and leave obsolete those rigs. So maybe for the Equihash coins, it's a great opportunity to leave those ASICs with set cash and attract those GPU miners to the blockchain. I know Bitcoin Gold. I actually saw Adam retweeting that Bitcoin Gold is actually making a hard fork to avoid that, to change the algorithm so that ASIC is not working for that blockchain.
Right.
Yeah. Zach, any thoughts on this Bitmain situation?
It's a mess. That's the extent of my thoughts. I mean, it's a little bit disconcerting. To be honest, I don't really have any strong opinions on it per se. I think it's disconcerting is the extent of my opinion on it.
Oh no, go on. Yeah,
no,
disconcerting.
No,
that sums it up right there. You know, and Maximo talked about the B Gold situation. If people check out the link section below, that was on yesterday's show. Remember, check out the archives. It's all below. Pound that like button. This has been a wild show. So let's move on to the big money players that were discussed this week. People were saying, "Oh, Goldman Sachs is opening a desk and trading desk or something," and also, there was an article in CoinDesk today about some rich Chinese guy that bought up like 10,000 Bitcoin while the price was down, recently. This is no shock to me at all. We have all these people who moan about, oh, I can't buy one Bitcoin, I'm scared. But then we have huge players coming in, getting gigantically involved in the space, and it was just a matter of time. We knew this was going to happen. This is just the tip of the iceberg. So at the end of the day, we're going to have the same people moaning, saying, oh, so why do the rich only have Bitcoin? Well, you had your shot. So Zach, I'll start with you here. What do you think about these developments here, that some big players are quietly getting into the game now? I don't know if you read the article about the Chinese guy that bought the 10,000 or not.
Yeah, I glanced through it. I saw a couple of headlines about it, and I saw Goldman Sachs opening the Bitcoin trading desk too. I mean, for the Chinese guy that bought like 10,000 Bitcoins or whatever, good for him. I mean, I want them, but I guess they're safe in his hands too. As far as Goldman, I think, like, I don't know, a couple people, some of my friends who are in Bitcoin, I should say, ask me and have different opinions on big players entering the space, and I don't really understand opinions that think it's a bad thing for these large players to enter the space. Maybe other people on this panel disagree, but I think the more people that are entering the space, providing more liquidity, more assurance for other players to continue to enter the space, is all just categorically positive all around for the space. The more money that flows into the space allows it to grow more, and that will only boost Bitcoin's upside. Goldman has always sort of, I don't necessarily want to say push the envelope, but been sort of a little bit more adventurous in venturing into newer equity and financial spaces than other large investors. But the fact that they are entering the space now, it will encourage others to at least more seriously consider it and potentially do the same in the future. Not potentially, I think almost guaranteed to do the same in the future. So I don't think it's a bad thing in any way that Goldman is opening this desk. I think it's phenomenal.
I agree. Bring them on. If they want to play with the big boys here, then the more big boys, the better. What do you say, Giuseppe?
I agree. I completely agree. I think that there will be a tipping point, an inflection point, where a certain threshold of institutional capital enters the space, and they're going to FOMO. Every single, people think about institutional capital as the smart money. Yeah, to the relative to the common person, sure. But from my experience, I know that institutional capital also FOMOs. And what's going to happen is, yes, if Goldman is the only institution to come in, yeah, that's a bad thing. But we know they're not going to be the only one. We need them in. Then we need the other ones to follow. And then what ends up happening is it starts to create an even larger ecosystem. And then, yeah, are there going to be growing pains because of these said institutions having so much of the float? Possibly. But that just happens with any growing industry, right? It's not all rainbows and butterflies. I would rather have a growing industry where we have really hard problems to think about, like what Bitcoin's going through with scaling, than have a shrinking industry and there's no problems at all, right?
Yeah,
So,
and I think one maybe undersung benefit of these large players entering the space is that it allows for already mined Bitcoin to be more widely distributed. I was chatting this morning with Mark Yesko of Morgan Creek about this very topic, and he brought up the point that there are definitely whales out there who may be looking to offload some of their Bitcoin or something, and probably substantial amounts of it. But they aren't idiots, and most of them, I guess, aren't idiots and don't want to just market sell it all and crash the price. And now that these huge players are entering the space, they can more quietly sell some of their Bitcoin and distribute it to other people. And that's another positive. Like a more equitable, wider, more broad distribution of Bitcoins is great all around. Whales having a ton of it isn't necessarily bad, but a more even distribution is great also. And I think this helps facilitate that happening more quietly and less disruptively.
Hey, but by the way, regular average Joe people out there, if you don't like these big players getting your Bitcoin, well, have a strong hand and don't sell your Bitcoin, for God's sake. They're going to buy it up for cheap. I mean, again, that Chinese guy was buying them up in January for all sorts of prices. And hey, there's some people that got a lot of money. They want to get in. They'll pay whatever. You need to have your strong hand so they don't get it and you don't end up complaining in the future. Maximo, any thoughts about all this?
Yeah, well, through the years, in this industry, I realized that the big money or the smart money is going to come first. Then, like you said, the 80% of the world are going to start buying Bitcoin when they see that the smart people is doing it. And I helped a lot of people here in Venezuela to buy Bitcoin and understand Bitcoin, and it's a fact that smart people and people with money, entrepreneurs or something, they understand the technology better, and it's easier for them to get into Bitcoin, to buy Bitcoin and see why Bitcoin have value, and they don't see Bitcoin as an investment. They see Bitcoin as this new form of money that in the future will allow them to have financial freedom. And there's other kind of people who buy Bitcoin and they don't even know how Bitcoin works, and they think that they're going to be rich in 2 weeks, and they end up selling it at a loss. So yeah, I think it's great that all this big money is coming to the industry. Like Zach said, is going to help get a better distribution of the Bitcoins that are already mined. Right now, there is a lot. Well, there is a lot of whales that holds a big amount of Bitcoins, and we will achieve real decentralization when those people sell their Bitcoins and all the 21 million Bitcoins are not evenly distributed, but distributed in a more decentralized way. So I think it's great. Like Giuseppe said, big money also foremost. So we will see a big hype in the next few months, I think.
Big money, also FOMOs. I like that. I thought that was a great line earlier. That was very good. Any other thoughts on the subjects from the panel? Anything any of you want to add? All right.
Trav tweeted something yesterday. I just want to throw out, talking like what we're saying. I don't know if you guys follow Parabolic Trav.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. He compared it to. He said it's literally an imminent land grab of the most coveted real estate on earth. Only in hindsight will most people realize that. And I think that describes it perfectly. Your percentage share of total coins will never decrease, irrespective of the price. And I mean, like you say every show, Adam, strong hands is literally the only thesis to have, because you sell, it's gone, someone else has it. Good luck trying to get them to sell it back to you.
Yeah, you'll worry. Hey, if you think I'm positive, follow that Trav dude. That dude is like really positive that they made like parodies of the dude and stuff. But yeah, it's good. Hey, let's get positive attitude. Be in motion, people. Be in motion. All right. This is an unplanned. Zach, do you have any thoughts on Lightning Network? Have you been talking to anybody about the Lightning Network lately or anything? I just thought I would bring it up.
Yeah, I have a little bit. I think, damn, this is unprepared. There were some great tweets that I saw.
The article that Aaron did, I don't know if you read that.
Yes. So he had one about the history of Lightning, and then he posted one about the future of Lightning. And so I don't come from a technical background necessarily, so my technical understanding of the inner workings of Lightning are somewhat limited. But from what I read from people, can get down to more digestible tweets and that sort of thing. I don't understand how you cannot be bullish, just to cop that word, on the Lightning Network. The amount of channels that are open on mainnet right now, the fact that it's functioning well on mainnet right now is just incredible. The amount of the quantity of coins being sent back and forth is fantastic. And the fact that there are multiple teams working on it, the fact that they're all coordinating and collaborating on the work, it's far from finished. It's far from all said and done. But the point that it's at right now is incredible. Obviously, follow Starkness and read the things that Van Werden wrote and all of that. I mean, it's the worst FUD is that the Lightning Network doesn't work, because there is nothing literally farther from the truth. So that's my take. I can try and pull up some tweets while you guys talk about it, but it's just incredible.
Okay, you two have anything to say about it?
Yes, to echo Zach, it's incredible, right? And I think a lot of and it's actually on for our transparent TXNs, it's going to be implemented on Bitcoin Private later this year for the transparent chain. But the people who criticize it, they point to the short-term hurdles. They're like, oh, this isn't going to scale. Oh, there's not enough nodes. Oh, I mean, come on. I mean, Amazon sold books in the beginning, and you could have said they're never going to be $1 billion business. And it's a totally far-fetched, comparison. But the point I'm trying to make is they have accomplished something and achieved a technical milestone that no other team in the history of the world have achieved when it comes to kind of distributed virtual currency transfer, etc. And every single small problem that's come up, or even if you consider it a major problem, they've overcome it. And we have no reason to believe they're not going to overcome it. So it's going to work.
One of the most like popular critiques that people hype up as if it's a reason that Lightning is failing or will fail is the UX of the network. And that doesn't make any sense from the get-go. Like, why would the network fundamentally fail just because right now the UX is suboptimal? It makes no sense. And then another popular one is that like Lightning Network requires more trust than the Bitcoin blockchain. But that's never denied by the teams working on the Lightning Network. Their thesis is that smaller transactions can rely on trusted third parties to an extent that the Lightning Network implements. You don't need all of those transactions clogging up the base layer blockchain. You can have a second layer solution that requires a modicum of trust like Lightning, and everything will function just fine. So both of those are the two more popular, I should say, critiques that I've seen at least, and I think they're both just garbage.
The FUD in cryptocurrency usually is generated from short-term thinking, just people that are totally impatient. Maximo, you're about to say something.
Yeah, well, I think we're all excited about Lightning Network. I wanted to say something. Actually, I was watching the Vortex show the other day, and they were talking actually about Lightning Network. And there was a guy that, well, he's excited, but he has some points criticizing the Lightning Network, and he was complaining that the Twitter community or the crypto community. I don't know. They get angry pretty quickly, and when you say something bad about the Lightning Network, they start throwing some tweets about personal stuff to him and that stuff. But trolls and fodders are good guys. Okay, they are not bad because they force us to find new arguments. So they make us better, really. They point on issues that Lightning Network has. Of course, it has some issues. It's a new technology. How can not have some issues? Bitcoin had a lot of issues in 2009, and look where we are today. So we can solve it. And actually, trolls and the people from Bitcoin Cash are good for the Lightning Network because they keep searching for troubles. And these smart developers and this smart team that are working in Lightning Network will keep solving those problems. Yeah. So don't block those people. Actually, trolls are good. I'm not gonna get tired of saying they make us better. They make us smarter. So come on, Bitcoin Cash people, keep searching, keep digging about Lightning Network, and keep showing that all the glitches and all the problems that it have. And these smart developers, because they are like Giuseppe said, they accomplish something incredible. They will solve those little issues, and Lightning Network will be a huge thing in the future where we all can do small transactions instantly and paying practically no fees.
Yeah, keep on poking and prodding at it. Make it stronger. I agree. Anyone else with Lightning Network comments before we move on? All right, let's go to Zach. Is there any story of the week that you want to, anything that's been left off you want to bring up today?
There was an article published earlier today.
Zach,
can you hear me?
It was a little choppy. Say it again.
Oh, sorry. There was an article published earlier today in the New York Times. It's not necessarily new news, but the idea of we talked about centralized currencies earlier, and the idea of a Fed coin is back, sort of in the news cycle or whatever. And I think it's hilarious, like especially in this iteration of discussion about it, how they justify having it in the first place. So obviously, a centralized cryptocurrency is an oxymoron. Like you can have a digital coin or some digital representation of money, but a cryptocurrency is decentralized, like categorically. But if you read this article, New York Times, you can just Google it. Should the Fed create Fed coin to rival Bitcoin? A former top official says maybe. Well, for the record, I say no. And if you read the article, he says it would be a pretty effective way for when the next economic crisis happens for us, meaning the Fed, to conduct monetary policy. I just read that and almost laughed out loud because I'm like, you conducting monetary policy is what creates crises in the first place. You don't need a new coin to conduct monetary policy in the middle of a crisis. And then he goes on to rant about how great blockchain technology is. And I just sort of stopped reading after that. I'm like, all right, you're a little bit misguided, to be polite. It's just hilarious. I think it's just hilarious and idiotic all around. But yeah, so that's back in the journalist discussion, I guess, and figured I'd mention it.
That tied a lot of things in together there. And yeah, of course, they got to drop some blockchain catchphrases in there too. Of course, it wouldn't be complete without that, a FedCoin New York Times article. Giuseppe, any thoughts and anything that was left out? Any Bprivate update you want to give? Oh, you're muted.
Nope, sorry. No further thoughts on Zach. I mean, Zach, I think summed it up quite well. And I think that's I mean, we touched on everything else going on in the industry, and everything's continuing to move forward. Development teams are becoming stronger. FUD is always going to be there, so makes us stronger, right? You know, in the Bitcoin private world, we're stronger than ever. Team is laser focused across the board. It's continuing to grow. The community is strong. You know, we're becoming more accessible as a cryptocurrency. HitBTC just opened up the gates yesterday, and it'll probably be the beginning of a lot more. And it's great. It's a great time to be developing a decentralized cryptocurrency, and it's going to be really fun to see all of the interesting developments and innovations that can come about leveraging privacy technology. And we have the merchant platform rolling out. It's in beta testing as we speak, and it's going to be rolling out. There's going to be real merchants across the world accepting Bitcoin private, and talk about real world use, right? So that's exciting as well.
Yes, that's awesome. Good to hear. Thank you for the update. People ask about Bprivate all the time too. Maximo, I'll let you wrap up the show. Anything you want to add? Anything that was skipped? You're the man.
Well, I want to say about actually this past 2 days, I was doing some research about all the information source that you can go and check about cryptocurrency and the cryptocurrency space. I checked Twitter, all the web page newspapers of cryptocurrency and that stuff. And I was really impressed by the fact that the scammiest side and the scammiest YouTube's channels have the most followers. Like this guy, Trevon James, now he's in trouble with some lawsuit because of Bitcoin. That guys have 100K subscribers, and all other sites, like here in Venezuela, there is a site called Crypto Noticias, who post a lot of news about like coins like Bitcoin and that. So I want to encourage the people who is watching this and who follows your channel, Adam, to encourage their friends, their families to actually follow the sources that brings really good content, that won't get you in trouble, that won't recommend you to buy some scam coins and get into Ponzi schemes like Bitcoin and all other stuff. Because those guys, I don't know why or how, I don't know, maybe the people, I don't know, something's wrong with our society. But these guys gain some really hard traction in social media, and well, that's bad, because there's a lot of people here in Venezuela who got into OneCoin and Bitcoin, and then you talk about Bitcoin and they associate those things and think Bitcoin is a scam, and that's not the truth. So, but maybe they will realize that later. But we need to do a better job, I think, we as a part of the crypto community, encouraging people to follow the sources that are really going to bring you great information. So that would be it, I think.
Yeah, well, I agree. The BitConnects of the world, the OneCoins of the world, people want easy answers. The 80% want it now. They're impulsive. So of course the channels that promote the easy, simple answers, the quick, get rich quick type of things, that's gonna be the most popular one. So I like your advice, but I realize that most people are still gonna go to the quick fix answers. But hey, if you're a 20%er, if you're a long-term thinker, guys, think about it. Research, do your own channels. There are no easy answers in life, and if you depend on yourself, guys. Depend on yourself. Personal responsibility is the new counterculture. All right. Anyone else with anything else to say? We're hitting that 6 p.m. mark, and I know everybody's got to go. All right, dudes.
Thanks. This has been a blast.
Dude, we timed it perfectly. Thanks a lot, guys. Check out the link section below. See who these guys are. Check them out. We'll be back next Friday with This Week in Bitcoin. I post a new show here every single day. Tomorrow is the Beyond the Bitcoin show. I'm Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Remember to subscribe to this channel, like this video, share this video. Check out the notes section below. Pound that like button. Bye-bye, everyone. See ya.
Yeah.